Welcome. Thank you for coming here today. This is kind of fun. We're going to,
Sweet.
we're going to start a new Twitch show that I'm going to call Tilt AF because Jamie thought of that amazing name, and hopefully she'll join us late. Ideally, I think my vision for this show would be like if it was super mega high budget, like Poker Go would pick it up and, go ahead and steal my idea, Poker Go, and there'd be like therapists and stuff and like all these breakout sessions for the participant. And the idea that I had is that let's take a poker player or even a person who wants to learn how to play poker and let's kind of talk with them, let them play through the game until they find tilt. And tilt in poker is defined as any deviation from your A game. So it's kind of popularized a lot in our community by Jared Tendler, who wrote The Mental Game of Poker, which is an amazing book. And he wrote about different kinds of tilt that you might have, frustration at the poker table, like if the cards just aren't going your way. But everyone has tilt. Like even if you're hangry, that's a kind of tilt. If you're tired, that's a kind of tilt. And Russ, you have volunteered to be our first participant to explore your inner poker psyche. So why don't you start by telling us what kind of poker you play, what your experience has been?
I play Hold'em poker, and at the moment I'm playing on play money sites. I'm actually trying to write a book on the process of learning to play poker to a high standard. I've only been playing for about 4 months.
Cool.
And I've got two main problems. One is I'm bloody awful at poker, and the other is I'm pathologically terrified of losing money.
Oh.
But yeah, the idea is at some point I'll hopefully get to a stage where I can hold my own in a cash game or a very, very small limit buy-in tournament sort of thing.
That's really cool. So are you a writer? Do you write books or news
I
articles?
write. I don't do it full time. I work in a hospital to make ends meet, but I've written 4 novels and various short stories. I won the Crime Writer Association short story competition in 2018.
Wow. Very impressive.
It's impressive if you look at the sales figures. It
Yeah.
gets a little less impressive. It's partly how I got interested in poker because most of what I write is crime fiction,
Neat.
and on several of these stories have revolved around poker games or gambling, or a lot of dodgy dealing. I think it says a lot that the first 3 books I've wrote on poker are how to cheat rather than how to play. But yeah, that's sort of where I am now. I'm still very, very much a newbie at poker, but I've already found I tilt, so I was quite interested in the program.
We'll get to that in a minute, but I won't want to introduce myself, and I'll let Mary introduce herself after. So just so you know, I'm also an author, although that's kind of irrelevant. I write nonfiction mostly, so I've written 26 published books. Fiction is
Wow.
much harder. Yeah, but that's cool. So I'm on board. And I also wanted to ask a follow-up question. Have you read Maria Konikova's book, The Biggest Bluff?
It's one of the things that sort of set me to doing this because there's a few books of that nature, but nobody's done it. How to get good at poker when you're really tight-fisted.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what
That's really, really cool. Okay. So my name is Doc. I've only been playing poker for about 5 years. This month is my 5-year pokerversary from when I first played my very first play money hand on Zynga Poker back in the day, and now I dove into it super head first. So now I work for Poker Power. We teach women how to play poker from beginners to feeling comfortable at the poker table. So I'm really excited that you're a beginner, and maybe I can help you in that way too. I also play cash games myself online, and so I work with a stable called poker detox, which is ironic because it doesn't detox you from poker. It actually encourages you to play more poker. And they focus a lot, though, on mindset and what it takes to be a professional, because by the time you join a poker stable, which for those who don't know is a group where basically coaches will provide coaching in exchange for a portion of the winnings of their students. So that's kind of the stage I'm at now. I feel like I'm intermediate and I'm working towards breaking free into higher stakes. So Mary, where are you in your poker journey?
Well, I started with Poker Power, so great that you mentioned that. So I think I'm right now a year, maybe 14, 15 months in.
Cool. That's awesome. That's a big achievement. That's amazing that you learned with Poker Power, because I was there right when it was first starting, so it's kind of like amazing that we now have students who have been playing over a year. So that's cool. Do you think you might want to be a future contestant on this show and we focus on you? I feel like you're here as help support backup, but I don't know.
But
Do you have
hey,
problem with tilt?
well, I think anybody who plays poker for any significant amount of time has tilt. I mean,
Yeah.
look at anybody like Negreanu or Helmuth, and we know those guys have tilt.
Oh
Helmuth
yeah.
is famous for tilt.
He is. And Daniel Negreanu recently had this big sort of episode where he like threw a selfie stick or something like that at a live poker
Yeah.
table. And I was kind of
Yeah.
triggered by that, because a lot of the poker discourse around this behavior was like, "Oh, he's just passionate, and it's great that he has this passion for the game and it helps people get into it if they see this passion." And I disagree with that, because I think that normalizing explosive behavior from men that involves throwing things or hitting things contributes to the zeitgeist of abuse culture, because I have a past where that behavior was normalized for me with men,
Mhm.
and it led me down a predictable and dark path that I am now free from. But I definitely, when I see that discourse in the poker community, I put my foot down. I'm like, no, it's not normal for men to throw or smash things. And even an incredibly passionate man can avoid having a big baby tantrum like that. So,
I just kind of don't like what that kind of leads to, like poor sportsmanship. Like, in what
yes.
venue is that allowed? You wouldn't do that at a movie theater. You wouldn't do it at a concert. You wouldn't do it at a comedy performance. There seems to be this kind of leeway in certain events where there ought not to be,
Right.
where that behavior is acceptable.
Yeah. So, Russ, let's talk about your tilt. So, you've played enough that you experienced tilt. You already kind of developed the. Oh, I think Jamie's coming. Hold on, let me see. Hopefully, this isn't just like some stranger. Hello.
I made it.
Yay, you made it. Okay, we were just doing introductions. So Russ is our contestant today, and he's just been playing play money games, and he has this amazing goal to kind of pull Maria Konnikova and go from zero to playing poker at a high level and write a book about it, which I love.
That's
So
a great idea. I
yeah.
remember when I was back playing Play Money.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I'm aware it's not sort of real, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it's
So
until I can sort of get a real handle on the game, I don't want to be throwing money at it.
Totally. And Mary was just explaining that she's a beginner too, but she's been playing for over a year, with first learning with Poker Power. So she knows her play money streets as well. Do you play poker for real money too, Mary, yet?
Well, I live in a state where it's neither legal or illegal.
That sucks.
What state do you live in?
I live in Maine.
Okay, but I mean, there's still like other ways around that.
Right, and I've traveled for tournaments before.
As the
So
Canadian, I'm just like,
yeah.
oh my God, the Americans have to
so
deal.
I lived in Montana and it wasn't legal there online either, but there's Ignition and ACR, and you can get on those and play for real money.
Yeah.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that, because I, as the Canadian, it just like makes my skin squirm when I feel like, oh, my poor American friends have to be on these shady fly-by-night sites where
I know. You Canadians have it so lucky. You guys
we
can just
do.
play whatever.
So,
Yeah.
Jamie, why don't you introduce yourself and say what your poker history is?
I'm Jamie LaFay, and so I started playing poker like 20 years ago.
Mhm.
I had friends that played poker, you know, like at home and whatever, and then so I would play like house tournaments with them for like $5 to $20 or whatever. And then I saw an actual poker table at a bar out in Montana, because like their bars are also casinos. And so some of them, like in the back, will have a poker table. And so I sat down and started playing and realized I was actually pretty good at it. But I mean, I had been playing too with my family when I was really young, like at family game night and stuff. So I kind of knew the game. And then, so then I just really got into it, and I thought, wow, I should like start to deal cards. So I started dealing. And then after a while, I was like, I'm really good at running this. I should just have my own game. So then I had my own game in a bar for a while. And then I got offered another business opportunity. So I kind of gave it all up, which I always was like really sad about, because I was kind of like what I enjoyed and what I was good at and what I wanted to do, you know, it was kind of like my dream, I guess. And then I got into this motorcycle accident back like 5 years ago. And I was in the hospital for a month. And my business partner at the time kind of stole the rug out from underneath me while I was in the hospital. And so I was left with like $300, and I had a bunch of bills to pay. And I couldn't really walk too well without a walker or crutches, you know. So I couldn't like go get a job or anything. So I just figured, well, I could go and sit for as long as I can sit and play. And so I started paying the bills that way and started building up a little bit of a bankroll. And then I realized that the games in Montana were too small, because the pot limit can only get up to like $800. And then it's capped, and then you can't get any higher than that.
Washington has some weird thing like that too, spread limit.
Washington has it, yeah, it's where you can max bet 300, and then the next person can bet 300, and then the next person can bet 300. And you can get it all in that way, but at least it's better than, you know, a pot limit. So I started driving over to Washington, and then I started just getting better and better and better. And I figured, well, it's time to move to Las Vegas, and moved to Las Vegas and started playing bigger games, and eventually got on Hustler on their Max Payne Monday and started playing there, and just living the dream, living the life I wanted to live. So it was kind of like, it was like really weird way to get into it. Like nobody ever says, oh, I fell back onto poker. You know, usually they have something that they did that's like good.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I really identify with that, because I'm also like taking poker further because I'm chronically unemployable. And so yeah, you have more experience than all of us combined, so I'm really glad you're here.
But I remember too, like back when I first started out, because, you know, I had such a small bankroll and I needed to get all of this experience and like practice, I would do, you know, a lot of games for play money and just practice that way. And you're playing online, it's free. And I was just doing really good. And it was a great way to practice, a great way to like learn things. And I remember my ex, like I was dating this guy who was playing poker, playing 1-3. And he was like, well, you know, that's stupid because it's just play money and you're not going to really learn anything that way because everybody just treats it like it's play money. And I was like, how many times do you see people come and sit down at 1-3 that have like a ton of money and just treat it like it's play money?
Yeah.
And they have like no respect at all for 1-3 and they play exactly the same way. Like, and I mean, to be fair, I was playing on Hustler, and I'm playing like higher stakes now, and he's still at 1-3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Success is the best revenge.
Yes.
Yes.
And welcome to the viewers. We're investigating tilt today, which is, of course, when your emotions take your game a little sideways. So, Russ, back to you. You were talking about you already kind of are self-aware of the root of your tilt, at least one of them, which is that you're afraid to lose money. So, what does that feel like in your body when you're playing the game?
When I'm playing and it's going well,
Mhm.
it's, everything's rosy and it's great. But if I'm once, start losing for whatever reason, whether I'm playing badly or because I'm even playing what I think is correctly, but I'm getting, bad beats left, right, and centre.
Mhm.
I don't really get angry, but I hit a kind of a despair with it, and it becomes sort of pointless. So what will happen is I'll either quit, which is no good because at that point you're not learning anything, or I'll just go all in, just trying to think, if it's only luck, if it doesn't, if everyone's just playing to luck, I might as well do the same, which of course is pointless. And I'm also fully aware I wouldn't do that with real money.
Yeah.
But it kind of inhibits how far I can progress with something, because I just sort of hit this nihilistic streak, if you like. I just can't see the point of it.
Yeah, well, poker kind of like taps into all those like dark parts of ourselves, It's kind of like a rock tumbler. I feel like it polishes off some of those parts of us. So, tell us a little bit about. So, you probably know about having a bankroll, right? Having enough money. So, do you feel like in the play money games that you're playing, do you have enough of these play money chips to really throw around?
The site I'm using, they give you 2,500 chips every day.
Gotcha.
Free.
Gotcha.
And what I've been trying to do lately is the tables are set up like normal. So you've got 2-4 limit, 5-10, 25-50, and so on, right up into sort of millions. But what I've been trying to do is play at tables where I've got at least 100 blinds. And I've kind of set myself a limit, just arbitrary limit. I want to get to 100,000 chips that I've accrued through winning.
Yeah.
The closest I've managed is about 80,000. And then I had a couple of bad days where maybe I should have quit, but didn't. But also didn't play any better. So eventually I'm back to 5,000 chips. Today I sort of lost practically everything again. I went from, I think I had 30,000 chips to start the day, and now I'm down to about 12,000. And I think what I find frustrating at the moment is I'm not proficient enough at poker to know when I am, if I've won a hand, was that purely luck, or did I actually play it correctly? So it's all coming at me two ways. When I lose, I'm sort of upset because I've lost anyway. But when I win, I'm also sometimes questioning, did I win fairly, or was it just purely, a chance?
How much of it was it like your skill, and how much of it was just like pure luck,
Exactly.
And the cards just falling right. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I feel like I can win if I've got the right cards, but any fool can do that.
Yeah, well, this is our first episode, but I think on the next episode, what might be really helpful too is if you could take some like screen captures of some of these hands where you feel this tilt, like, am I doing this right? Or is this like just crazy bad luck or crazy good luck? And maybe we can talk a little bit about that, because that's definitely true. That you could go either way, and I mean, I'm in that spot too, and I've been playing longer. I think that's always going to be something that you have to investigate after the fact.
I'm aware it's a part of the game, but as I say, just at the moment, my skill level isn't such that I can analyse a hand deeply enough to really know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be good. That'd be useful.
Benjamin says his first deposit was on pokerroom.com, and you could deposit and put it on your phone bill. That sounds terrifying. That's
Oh
like,
my gosh, what a great way to hide it though.
it's like worse than having a psychic hotline. Yeah. All right.
Horrible.
Yeah.
My
Okay.
plan is when I
Oh, that could
start
be
using
so
the real
dangerous.
money is to have an account totally separate that has
Yes.
no overdraft facility. So if it, if I burn through my bankroll in the month, that's it. I can't.
So
top it
you're
up from
staying
there.
at the lowest stakes on the play money, right? You're not jumping
At the
around.
moment, I had progressed from like the 2-4 limit up to the 25.50, and I found I wasn't performing any worse on those than I was at the 2-4s at the start. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And the other problem I found with the 2-4 stake games, it was hard to find a game where people were playing. What was happening was people coming up and just going all in.
Yeah.
Pre-blind, pre-flop, every hand after hand, and it was a coin toss every hand. And I thought, well, this isn't a learning experience.
Yeah, and I think that problem is pretty pervasive in play money games,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like Mary's in our poker power community, and like the benefit of that is that we do have this sort of closed community where all the ladies are working on their game, and so it's definitely way different from just playing in the lobby on any of the apps for play money, because people are trying to take it seriously. But I think it's still always going to be a problem with play money. Like I find a difference even from like 1 penny, 2 penny stakes versus play money.
I don't think you can
I
fully
think
get
that
over
can be
the.
very helpful though. I think it can be helpful to like get that out of your system with play money rather than like kind of being loosey-goosey on the table with real money,
Yeah. And I really like that you said that you're trying to only sit on tables where you have 100 buy-ins. Like that's really awesome. That's a great habit that you can keep throughout your poker career. Oh, thank you. My tech support has given me all kinds
nice.
of
The good support.
All right, awesome. Okay, so that's great. So when you're playing the game, you notice that your play starts different, kind of behaving differently when you're losing versus when you're winning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite pleased that I'm aware of it, if you know what I mean. Now that I kind of seen some of the kind of points where I know I'm losing. Like if I start swearing at the computer, I know I'm down.
Well, that's really good to hear. Like, so you actually will get to the point where you're so kind of like emotionally aroused that you're swearing at the computer.
Yeah. But in fairness, I'm from North London. We swear at most things. It's.
Well, I don't know. I think that's what kind of really interests me in putting together like a little show like this, because I think we all tilt in different ways. Yeah. And I never swear at my computer when I lose a hand. Instead, I'm more like I internally implode, and like inside I'm like saying bad stuff about myself, like for making the mistake, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really fascinating to me how all of us just behave differently based on our family of origin and all the other factors,
I find if I'm because I'm very much the newbie. I mean, I've been playing 4 months. If I can actually spot that I'm playing badly, if I can look at hand and think, oh, I shouldn't have done that, and that's why that happened, that I'm quite happy about, because I'm aware I've learned something then. And one of the sort of things I picked up on a little while ago was I'm blind to the suits to a large degree. I'll look at the cards and, oh yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8. My hand beats that. But I won't notice that there's 4 clubs on the board.
Yeah, that's a really common beginner problem. I'm sure Mary remembers those days.
Oh yeah. Like I have a cheat sheet still.
Yeah.
I have a cheat sheet that's like taped, so whenever I'm playing, I'll kind of have it nearby. Yeah. And also you can change the colors too. Yeah, I didn't realize that until much later. Is you can have them like hearts can be red and clubs can be green, and then because you can have different colors, and that will kind of pay attention.
Yeah,
I
Zoe's
I
dad
saw,
was
I
saying
tried
that
you
too.
doing that, but I was worried about getting into the habit of looking for colours rather than suits, if you see what I mean.
Oh, I think right now it's
Yeah.
fine. I had
You
that
think it's
same
okay?
thought when I
I
was a
know what you
beginner,
mean.
actually, that exact same thought. I was like, I don't want to use 4-color deck because then when I go to the casino, I won't have that like help and it'll be a huge problem. But I promise you, it's not going to be the huge
Okay,
problem
I
that you
will
think it
switch to a
is.
4-colour deck then. 'Cause I had that today. I had trip nines that turned into full house.
Yeah.
I
Well,
got beaten by a flush
you're
after
trained
going all in.
Hey!
you're training your brain as to pattern recognition, and
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think that the underlying understanding of a flush is the part that you're training more than the understanding of like black and red versus the 4 colors. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
switching to 4-color deck is the first like solid piece of advice we can give you, because
Okay, I'll
it's
try
gonna
that then.
help those flushes not sneak up on you as easily. They
Yeah.
still will though, and that's the trick, right? Once that's what you're training your brain for, you know?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, definitely. So you've got this part where you're still learning the pattern recognition and stuff like that. Zoe's dad redeemed pet time. Once my cat comes, I'll have to show her off. He loves my cat. She's like big and fluffy. And her name is Dog because I used to not be allowed dogs
Oh.
in my apartment. And so I got her and I named her Dog, but she's like the worst dog. She's the worst dog. I have a real dog now, and he's amazing. Highly recommend. Real dog.
I adopted a dog. There's a dog's home in Britain. There's several. There's one that never puts any down. They don't. They if they can't rehouse them, they just keep them. And they've got this
Oh.
list of like animal offenders that are too psychotic to be housed anywhere because they've been abused and they're violent or vicious. So I've adopted this lurcher. I can't visit him because it will try and kill me, but I'll send it food every week, basically.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Yes,
It's quite a
Zoe's
good
dad.
pet for me because I don't have to do anything to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, stay tuned because at the end of this stream's only giving me an hour out of my guest time, and at the end of the stream, I will in fact fetch Dog and I will show her off. She's in her full winter floof, so stay tuned
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's phenomenal. She's maximum floof. Okay, so we've got our first piece of advice, and then I wanted to return back to another kind of coping mechanism that you mentioned, Russ, which is quitting. And if you read any of Tommy Angelo's works, I really highly recommend you read, what's his book? Elements of Poker. Elements of Poker by Tommy Angelo. Read that book. It's a quick read. And, I think one of the things he talks about is using quitting as a tool and basically being better at quitting than your opponents.
Quitting is such a huge part of having a winning game, like that I've noticed for sure. If you can quit when you're ahead, I mean, you've got an edge right there, because so many people, like we just heard, they'll be up and then they'll just keep going and then they'll be back down, and it's like,
And I have that trouble.
That's the swings of poker for sure. But if you can quit when you're ahead, that's a huge edge. But also, if you just can tell it's one of those days where you're just not gonna win, and you've already gone through maybe a buy-in or two, and you're just like frustrated already, and you can say to yourself, no, I'm not feeling it today. I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna go do something else.
Yeah.
It's a huge edge on your poker game in the long run as well. Like, those are the two things that can make you a winning player, is learning when to quit.
I think that I struggle with that myself because as a mom, I have really limited time that I can play online. So like when my kids go to bed at 8, I have 2 hours that I play before my bedtime. And if I'm like too tired during those hours, I'll find myself wanting to push through it because I'm like, I need to finish. I need my 2 hours, right? Because that's gonna be 900 hands, right? Because I'm playing 4 tables at once. So I'm like, I need these hands. And what helps me is remembering that poker, it's like you're playing one long session your entire lifetime, right? Like you never
Yeah.
end. You're just constantly playing poker. So it really doesn't matter when you pause the game, right? Because you're going to be back at those tables tomorrow. So, you're inspiring me to listen to that voice in my head more when I'm like, I'm just too tired. My brain's out of it. I had a beer with dinner. I'm a little loopy. Like, I need to just log
And
off.
definitely being able to manage just a 2-hour time frame.
Yeah.
Like that's a big thing that people don't really take into consideration very often either, is their time frame. And that was something like in Montana that I had to deal with, because the game would start at 4 and then it would end at like 1:30 in the morning, and that's such a small time frame compared to like what you can find in Vegas and other casinos where you can just go in any time of the day and it's just going all 24 hours. But to just have a small time frame and manage that's huge.
Yeah, and Mezzo in chat was saying, I'm up right now at this table 400%. How do you quit when the table is soft? And I think the general advice is, if you still feel good and fresh, and you have the time, then by all means, keep playing.
Go.
Yeah, go with it. Roll with it, right? Like when I go to a home game, I try and stay up. I'm like one of these squares, like I'm old now. When 10 o'clock rolls around, I'm thinking about my bed, right? And so, but I try and like push it a little bit if I'm out at a home game that's like super duper juicy and I'm like, okay, I can make it till 11, then I can head home. But you got to check in with yourself and your mindset. So, what's your time like? When do you play poker, Russ? Like, are you like, how much per day?
I work in a hospital. I do a lot of odd shift patterns. So I don't have a body clock anymore. I just there's times I'm asleep, there's times I'm awake.
Yeah.
So I think one of the problems I have is sometimes I'll be playing when I'm really tired, but I don't realise I'm tired because I'm quite often in that state anyway. But for me, it'll be the middle of the working day.
Yeah.
So I think maybe I should do it more, but sometimes I'll say, okay, I'm going to play for an hour. And at the end of it, I'll stop. If I'm winning, I'll play. If I'm losing, I'll play. But once the alarm goes, I stop.
I was mentioning earlier how poker is kind of like that rock tumbler that helps smooth off your rough edges. And I think one thing that it's done for me is really make me look after my mental state more. And so if you're serious about your poker goal of making this big, you're probably going to have to develop a schedule for your sleep and stuff, because the brain's your tool and you got to take really care.
Yeah, your mental health becomes such a huge priority when you actually start living the poker life. Like, when it becomes your only job and your only like money coming in, you don't have the ability to risk it. You have to be mentally aware and acute all the time and in it, and you have to do all the little things that get you there.
Karen Chess
at the
was
moment,
saying,
a lot of my time it's dictated by the hospital because I don't have regular days.
Yeah, that's right. You have a really wild schedule.
I think a lot of poker players don't have regular days either.
Yeah, but I'm minor dictated, so I'll work coming weekend. I'm doing Saturday, Sunday, Monday night, so that will start 8 in the evening till 8:30 the next morning.
Yeah.
Then I'll be off for 3 days. Then I might be on a day shift.
Yeah, that's really tough.
Yeah.
Obviously I have an element of control over it. And it can be useful sometimes because I've sort of the times I'm in the house, if you like, I've got the place to myself. So that's when I sort of grab time to play in blocks. But yeah, it is at the moment it's hard for me to get a schedule, but
yeah. Karen Chess was saying in the chat that she started playing just little $2 and $3 tournaments on America's Card Room, and she started using a poker tracker, which is definitely in your future when you start moving to real money. Yeah. Tracking your poker is going to become really vital because you can look at the data, and then you can see how you play on days where you're well rested, versus how you play on days when you're not well rested.
Yeah.
And that's going to be encouragement for you to do what you can with what you got. And I understand the problem. Like, my sweetheart worked night shift for a while, and it just like destroyed his brain, especially because he tried to like crank over to be a daytime dweller on the weekends so that he could like have time with
that's when
us.
it can really get you.
Yeah, and it's just it was murder. Like I was so happy when he lost that job because it was like everything about his life. Like, he was just like, oh, like the mood was off. Like, he was like gray skin. It was just terrible.
I mean, as I say, I find I remember some years ago I did 6 consecutive night shifts, like 12-hour night shifts.
God, yeah.
96. And I thought I was absolutely fine with it. And then I realised by the end of the night shift, I'd actually been sat in front of a computer screen for 3 hours and I hadn't moved. I lost 3 hours. I wasn't asleep, but I just realised I sort of vanished for 3 hours. And I didn't even realise I felt that tired. So yeah, it is, something hopefully going forward I can change, but
yeah.
I suppose I was lucky because my sister-in-law had night shift as well, and so like I would get done with poker around the same time that she would get done with work, and then we would both kind of wind down together and talk about work and talk about poker and stuff. And so I think that was kind of nice, but not having someone there, it is rough, like winding down and then trying to wake up in the day and like doing stuff. Even with someone there, it's still rough. It's just rough. Grinding is rough because that's what it is. You said that you do the night shift on the weekends and then you wake up, you have a few days off and then you have the day shift. And that's exactly what my schedule is usually. Exactly.
There's a part of that kind of irregularity I quite like in a way. I sort of like not having a routine. I like sort of being, I don't know, sort of alert when everyone else is asleep. That sounds kind of sinister. I didn't mean it to.
I think that's attractive to poker players in general, definitely. Yeah. It's just the freedom.
And one thing on the subject of tiredness, it probably doesn't apply at all to poker, but I find sometimes as I write fiction, some of the best stuff I've written, I was sleep deprived. So
yeah,
I don't think access another part of your brain.
I think that creativity can sometimes be boosted by that lack of sleep state, but the logical decision-making process is what you're going to have to protect here. So I think it's probably going to take your creativity to try and, I think that it would really be helpful if you at least moved away from just being like the Energizer bunny that hits the wall and goes to sleep and then wakes up. I think what could be helpful is just finding, like Jamie said, like ways to wind down and be intentional about your resting periods, as much as possible with your wild schedule.
Yeah, there's something to be said about like blocking off time as well. Is just kind of having, like, don't get me wrong, like I will try to play poker as much as possible and try to not to get caught at work.
Yeah.
But I always find when I'm doing that, I'm rubbish. I'm just absolute. I'm either not paying attention or I'll just get really lucky. So if you're not like really paying attention, and that's where like focus and time come in.
Yeah,
I find a lot of time.
I've been aware of doing that myself. Sort of, you're playing, but you're playing rather than practicing. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right, but there's something to like there should be like a kind of like a practice mentality, and then like a playing mentality. Right now, just play as much as you can, and you can kind of find your feet on how you kind of feel about it.
Yeah.
But you have to give yourself that time and that dedicated time and space to do that.
I think that there's different kinds of tired as well, because like you can be physically tired but still mentally sharp, if that makes sense. And then there's times where you're mentally just completely drained, but physically you're kind of not tired yet. I mean, I'm very well known for playing and playing and playing. Like I definitely have played plenty of 24-hour sessions, 48-hour sessions, and somehow my mind stays there. But I mean, it's like if I'm already tired and I try to go into it, it's just gonna be like a Lego explosion. Just like, it's not good.
That's a good point.
Is that something you've always been able to do, or is that something that's come with 20 years of poker playing?
Yeah, I think that mentally, like if I was going into something and I wasn't too tired and I, could get my mind into it, I could keep most of my focus on that and not get derailed too much. But then of course, there's always that point where you're just like, okay, I get it. The game is great. It's only getting juicier, but I'm exhausted. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I remember one time I was at the 5-10 table playing, and we were playing 5-10-20 at Aria. And like all of the European pros had already left, and all of these, all of these tourists were coming in who just wanted to play, and they had just gotten there and they were like, let's play. And I'm like, okay, let's do it, And I'd already been there for a long time and I was tired, but I was still mentally there, And I played and I played and I played, and it got to be like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. And I just asked the floor, like, please help me. Like, I literally do not think I can walk down to the Uber by myself. Like, I can't even order an Uber right now. I will give you money to order me an Uber. And they did. Like, I gave them cash money. They ordered me an Uber. They walked me down there. They were so good, so kind. Like, Aria floor people can be so great sometimes. It's just so amazing.
Sweet. That's like weirdly heartwarming, oddly wholesome.
And like somehow though, I was still going and I was just winning and winning. And I was just finally, I just looked at everybody. I was like, you guys, this is a great game. This has been so much fun, but I am dead tired. I've got to go. So,
for sure. Well, I guess it's really interesting because this is another situation where everybody is just different, and you're going to have to learn your own sense of self-awareness, because I could never play a 24-hour poker game. I would like literally die or something. Like, I'd end up in the mental hospital for sure. Like, that's definitely a thing that would happen. But I just could never do it. And so you're going to have to just kind of find your own balance there. And like Jamie could always do this kind of magic. You got to ask about your history, like, have you
That's
been
another
that person?
thing too that you're so spot on about, is that you have to find your own groove, your own way of playing, your own way. Like, you really do. And everybody's body is different. Everybody's mind is different. So what works for somebody is not going to work for somebody else. So, finding the best way, like the cheapest way to like find out what works for you and what doesn't is really key.
I think that the advice I'd give you for this is just start keeping like a little bullet journal, and when you play going forward, until the next episode we do, basically just make a note after each session, like, what was my energy level on like a scale of 1 to 10, maybe a little data there, like, were you sleeping, how much sleep did you have, that kind of stuff, and then just rate how well you think you were doing mentally during the game, like just a smiley face or frowny face. Bullet journaling is really helpful. What it is, if anybody hasn't heard of this, it's where you kind of like prepare your journal ahead of time. So like, I'd probably have like a line for like, what was my schedule like that day, like night shift or day shift, and like check 1. And then I'd have a line for, how long did I play poker? And then I'd have like a little smiley face I could circle of like, how was I feeling? And that way you'll be able to log and then really look at that little bits of data and say, oh, like when I don't sleep very well, I still feel okay. It's kind of random. Or you might say, oh, it looks like every time I'm not well rested, I'm totally failing at this thing.
So, yeah.
And that way you're gonna start having a record, and you can start learning about yourself, you know? So
Okay, I'll try that. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to try different speeds too. I find that I really like shorter games. I'm very much turbo freeze out, like 2 hours or
Oh
less.
my god, you need to start playing Spin and Goes. Okay, we'll talk about that another time, but Spin and
Yeah.
Goes.
What are the spin and goes? The spin and goes are the ones where you like spin and it tells you how much you're playing for.
Yeah, exactly. So when I first
Those are
became
fun.
when I first became a winning player, I was a spin and go grinder. I had a spin and go coach, and I was like crushing and like moving up the stakes there. And it was really great, but I decided to transition to cash games because I actually like them even better, and they do have that benefit of being able to like quit when you want kind of thing, which is really nice. I'm not an MTT person because like those 11-hour days just murder me.
They're really hard. They are.
Yeah. Well, when I
We've got some
started
spin
this,
fans
I
in
did
the
a book
chat.
I was with tournaments, but I think cash games might suit my temperament more because
Yeah.
I like that element of joy. It's okay, I'm going now. You know.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the freedom of cash game,
Me
but
too.
I mean, for some reason, I am just like really good at tournaments. And I wish that I could just take the time and play those, but yeah, I don't have that.
Yeah, you have to.
Like that yet. I don't got it like that.
I think as a beginner, it's really important to find out like what you like and what you're good at, you know? And I started out loving cash games, but just like crushing at spins, and I didn't have like I had a coaching for profits arrangement, so I didn't have the resources to be able to get like a high cash game coach at that point. And so I was like, well, you know, pick one game and stick to it, and that's really good advice when you're a beginner is like pick what you're good at and stick with that. And then I took a year to like transition to cash games, and it was like rough going. So, you know, but I'm happy I did that, but I'm happy also that I did the spins for as long as I did, because you got to just hammer the stuff that you're winning at.
Yeah, if you have an edge in something, you gotta keep that going.
That edge, absolutely. And then you can transition later if there's something else that catches your fancy, you know. Absolutely. All right, well, it sounds like we've got a few bits of advice. I'll start like winding down towards the end of the stream. So before our next episode, which you know we'll arrange off camera, we've got the few bits of advice for you. We had switch to 4-color deck. Definitely that. That's important. We had learn about quitting, basically. Figure out when you should quit. And the third thing, which is kind of related to learn when to quit, is start a little journal for how you feel emotionally and mentally after your games, and what factors were kind of contributing to that sense of yourself.
I used to also journal like on the daily, not only how I felt after, but like how I was feeling before, when, you know, as I was going into the game, like what was going on. Did I, you know, was I feeling sick at all, or was I feeling, you know, extra energy at all, you know, because I find sometimes if I have too much energy, I get a little overzealous and start playing stuff that maybe I shouldn't be playing.
Okay.
I'm like too excited. So I just tracking how you feel as you go into it is important too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions for us? Any other things you want to pick our brains about?
Could I ask Joey something a bit off topic? You said you had a bike crash. Do you still ride?
So crazy thing is, I used to only ride dirt bikes, and I was on a Harley. I was just a passenger. I was getting a ride because, so I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and in New Mexico, there's, you know, a huge Native American scene and population, and I'm part Native American, and they have this powwow called the Gathering of the Nations Powwow, which is all the different tribes come together. And because of that, it was so overwhelmed with people that the Ubers were like 20 minutes, 30 minutes out. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I'm going to wait 30 minutes for a drive that's 5 minutes down the road, you know? And this guy had this suggestion, this, you know, guy that I was hanging out with, him and his wife. He was like, oh, why not have this guy give you a ride on his Harley? He's sober. He doesn't drink. You know, he's been playing with the band, and why not let him give you a ride? And I was like, oh, that's not a bad idea. So I gave him like the full, you know, questions, like, let me see your driver's license, make sure you're endorsed, let me see your insurance, make sure you're insured, and let me see all this. I started asking him questions about his bike and like how long he had it, how long he'd been riding, stuff like that. And he seemed really good to go. And so I was like, okay. And he was like, how about this? We'll drive around downtown here really quick. You'll get comfortable on the bike, and then we'll get on the freeway and I'll take you to your hotel. And I was like, okay, sounds good. And we got on the freeway finally, and we're doing, you know, freeway speeds, 65, 70. Yeah. And a car did not see us and just pops out in front of us. Yeah. And so we were going to run into the back of him, and he put on the brake and he put on the front brake. So we started going upward, and I swung myself back and like dropped it back down and then pulled myself up. And I was like, we're going to crash into the back of them, aren't we? And he's like, nope. And I was like, no, don't do it. No. And then he laid it down, and I was just, no. And then next thing I know, he's grabbing me from behind and he goes, tuck and roll. And I go, believe you me, I'm gonna. And so I started rolling, and I look up and I see him, and he hits a tree and he goes flying off. And then the motorcycle comes flying right at me and lands on my head and knocks me and rolls me off. And I got knocked out at that point. And then I came to, and, you know, there were EMTs there, and they were trying to like get my clothes off. I was like, don't you cut my dress. And they're like, look at it. And I was like, okay, but it's my favorite dress. And they're like, okay. And I was like, I need some drugs right now. This hurts. And they're like, okay, well, calm down. We don't have any drugs on us. I was like, I know that that's a lie. You picked the wrong one. I know what's in there. You need to go get it for me. And they were like, that's not your ambulance. And I was like, oh, really? Is it for you? Who do you think it's for? And they were like, somebody else was on the bike with you. And I was like, oh yeah. Like, oh shit, how is he? And they're like, are you related? And I was like, sure. And they were like, you're not, are you? And I'm like, I am right now. How is he? And they're like, he's not good. He's, you know, we're bringing him back to life right now. And I'm like, no. And I was like, save him. He saved me. Like, you have to save him. And they're like, we're trying. And so then my ambulance came, and then they asked me, you know, what happened. And somehow I remembered. And they're like, you must be really smart. And I was like, I don't know about that. I was on the back of his bike. And they saved him, though. They did. And we're still friends to this day.
Wow, that's really awesome. I'm so glad he lived. I used to ride a motorcycle, and then I had kids. And yeah. I started making that risk-benefit assessment, and I looked at the data, and I'm like, you know what? I really got to stay alive until these kids are grown. I should probably not do that anymore. But, yeah.
I feel like dirt bikes are just, you know, total different class than street bikes, you know.
It tends to be on a street bike. It's not the fall, it's what hits you afterwards. Worse when I parked a BMW in the front of a bus. Collapsed both lungs, broke me shoulder blade, 6 ribs in the back. But
yeah, they were amazed that nothing was broken on me.
That's amazing. That's a miracle.
Because my head should have been split open.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of those people just
They were just like, it seems like
something you get someone to have a
unbelievable.
minor tumble, it'll kill them. It's
I was like,
There
maybe
he
I'm
is.
still a baby and I can just bounce.
While you're talking about that, I'm gonna get the palate cleanser, which is my super floofy cat, so that I can show her on screen at the
Yeah.
end.
Go get a dog.
Yes, cat named dog.
Yeah. I love that. Right now, where I live, they're like, it was in the lease that we could have an animal, but they're like, no, you can't. And I was like, I need to find a way around that.
Oh wow, look at the cat.
Oh, he's so cute.
Don't begin,
So
Floofy.
fluffy.
Oh.
Are you very small, or is that cat very, very big? It looks like you're holding a tiger from this
Yeah,
angle.
that cat looks huge. And I'm like, how much of that is fluff?
A lot of it. I have to shave her in the summer, and she turns into this skinny little thing.
That's cute.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me today and for bearing your souls. That's really rad. And I'll say goodbye to everybody for now, and we'll end the stream.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye, guys.
Good luck.
Bye.
Nice meeting you.